Hi everybody, Giselle Grenier here. For today's project, we're going to make a dimensional iron looking ATC. Now you can do this as an ATC, you can do this as a postcard, as an actual painting, a larger size painting, whatever you want. I'm just going to show you the technique. So what I have here is I have this stencil from DecoArt, and what I wanted to do with this particular ATC was to put some inspirational words on it. And, you know, it fit absolutely perfectly. So hope, laugh, joy. So I'll be able to put that on there. And then the little heart I'll be able to put down here. So I masked the areas off that had other letters. Okay. And so that'll protect the piece. You'll see why as I do it, why you have to mask it off, and why it's easy when you've got a stencil that actually is set up. So I'm going to use that, and all the supplies that I'm using will be listed at the end of the video, so you're not going to miss anything. Okay, so the stencil, I've got a couple of pieces prepared to save time, but what I have is I've got three ATCs. This is just, these two are 110-pound cardstock. This is Terraskin that's been primed with gesso just to make it, to give it a little bit of texture. So I'm going to be demonstrating on these three pieces. I've got a piece of grungy parchment paper underneath. I have a paper towel roll, palette knife, masking tape to mask off the stencil. DecoArt Texture Fierro. Okay, this makes your stuff look like iron, and this is gold. That. Texture tools, and if you don't have texture tools, I'm going to show you with the palette knife, so you don't need to worry. So just watch, then go from there. So this is going to be the start of the base of the piece. Now, in an ATC prep video that I did, if your cardstock is very thin, what to do is prime with gesso, or if it's a larger sheet you haven't cut down, or even smaller sheets, doesn't matter, collage some tissue, napkin, even toilet paper, paper towel, something on it to make this a little bit stronger. 2 cardstocks might be a bit too thick, so a paper napkin actually works well. So decoupage on the piece, napkin, decoupage over, let it dry, and then you can trim it down. Okay, now I have a prep video to show all that stuff, so I don't waste time here. All right, to start first, I'm going to show you first the actual project I'm going to do. I'm going to do it on this here. Okay, so a Texture Fierro, think of it like drywall mud, the consistency of drywall mud. It's like plaster type of thing, but this makes it look like iron when it dries. It's absolutely beautiful. Oh. Before, what I had to do was use the textured their texture paste, that's granular, and add paint to it. Okay, which is something you could also do as well. And bear with me, sorry, I should have had this out already. This is here. This is texture thick, and they have a texture fine, which is, and this is very granular. It looks like snow with crystals in it. I prefer this because it's so fine. It's already done for you, and you can add paint to this as well. So the one thing I'm going to do first is I'm going to prep this. I'm going to use a palette knife. Okay, then the other one I'm going to show you with a texture tool, then the other one I'm going to show you with imprinting. So all you're going to do is basically think of frosting a cake. I don't frost cakes, so I'm probably doing it wrong, but you want to put a layer that's thick enough that you can get ridges in it, but thin enough that it dries within 15-20 minutes. You don't want to make it so thick because then it won't fit into an ATC sleeve. If you're doing this as a postcard, it won't fit into an actual envelope. Artistic postcards, never mail them as is. Always put them into an envelope. I'll just scrape the rest. Put it here. Okay. Well, there's not much more that needs to be done with this because I love the texture, but let's see if I just want to get just a few more marks on here. Don't make the ridges too thick because then they'll make the stenciling a little bit more difficult. There we go. If you're doing this as a regular, like a full-size painting piece, then you can make it as thick as you want. Just remember that it does take a little bit longer to dry. I'm not going to worry about the edges here because they're white. I'm going to actually paint those after. So although I am doing this for an ATC, you can do this for anything. You can do this on canvas, on masonite, on clayboard, anything you want. Okay, so that's one. All right, so I'm going to put that aside to dry. And I have one that's already prepared. Okay, so it looks like that. Now what I did here is just to give you an example of what I'm going to do next is there's just, sorry, the third piece, you could actually imprint as well. I just used a paper towel holder. Okay, so for the next piece, this is on straight cardstock. And, oops, yeah, I'm going to use the palette knife to get the stuff on first, the Texture Fierro. This will also make your card much stronger, but even saying that, don't use bond paper for this because bond paper is just too weak to hold it. Okay, so this one here I'm going to smooth out fairly well. Okay. Hold that aside. And I'll just slide this down a bit. Okay. While it's wet, you can use the texture tools. Now, depending on if you want large marks or small marks, you can, let me just use the palette knife for this. And this is easier done on larger sheets as well. I can just make swirls like so. And then I can just lightly soften them up so it looks like a grid. Okay, so you can put texture in it that way. Put that aside. And then this here, put it in water so the material doesn't actually stick to it. There's other tools that you can use as well. Here's pointy ones. They're really, really cool. Then the other one I'm going to show you is a combination of both. Combination of all three with a stamping. So this one here I'm going to put on, and it does help if your cardstock, if your prepared base is a bit thicker. So if you have an old painting, again, I showed that in the prep video, repurposing your artwork, that actually is better because it's thicker to start off with. Okay, so that. Then I'm going to take a texture tool. And because it's curled a little bit, the effect is going to be a little bit different. Lines. Pop that in water. And I can use then a paper towel roll. That's going to be right in your face. It's going to be right in your face, and I can just push in some circles. Okay. 3. I am obsessed, OCD type, with the number 3. I don't know why. But, so there's that one. Okay, so this is, and in the future, I'll have a bunch of videos later on, but this is specifically for this project. So there's 3 different things that you can do. So these now I'm going to put aside, and I'm going to grab the one that I did, put my palette knife in water, and close the lid. So the one that I did, this has had about 10 minutes to dry. It's cold, okay? So it's still wet underneath. So you really want to let this totally dry before you do any collage work, or stamping is not too bad, but some collage work on here. You want to let it totally dry. When it's totally dry, I will sand the edges to get rid of any of the Texture Fierro that's got little bumps on it. I'll sand that down. And what I have is 180 grit sandpaper wrapped around a block that I stole from Joe's workshop, and I'll just lightly sand that. If you were doing this on, let's say, masonite, or even maybe probably canvas or a board, you can use something like a Dremel tool with the sanding thing and just sand the edges. But remember, don't inhale the dust, so it's always best when sanding anything. You do it in a ventilated area that's away from electronic equipment and wear a dust mask. Okay, and always read the directions on the actual equipment that you're using. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a few minutes, I'm going to clean up my area, and we'll get started doing our stenciling and show you a stencil that I've already done. Okay, so now this is dry, so I just want to show you another one that I started to make. This is going to be for another video. It's the one where you start doing something, then you say, oh, okay, I have one already done. That's this one here. Now this one here is a little bit more complicated. Now this one is on a cereal box, okay, which has been primed with 5 layers of gesso. And this is where I was talking about how this stencil here is absolutely perfect because it fits. This one here you have to do in multiple layers because the letters come individual, and in order to do everything to fit on the card, you have to fit them in this way, but you can't put the Fierro this way, so I had to do the A first, take it off, you let it dry. Then you do the B. Well, in order to do the B, it has to go inside. So these pieces here are actually touching over. Okay, so you have to let it dry. So it's nice to find stencils that are kind of linked together, but at the same time, this gives me more room that I was able to change up to a lowercase b for this. So when this was dry, then I put this one in, let that dry. Let that one dry, then I put this one in. Okay, so that's how I did this one. But this one here, I didn't put the Fierro on first because it's this is for a different video. Okay, but I just want to show you that it ends up looking like this. And I don't know if you can see, I don't think the camera can focus. It looks like granite. Almost, it looks something like granite. Feels, the texture, let's see if I can show you how high it is. There you go. Very dimensional. Okay, this stuff is amazing to work with. So I'm going to put these aside. Now we're going to work on this one. So this one here is basically a simple piece. And oh, forgot, sorry. The color for this Fierro is the iron black. Okay, so that's that one. I'll put that aside. I want to make sure I tell you guys everything that I'm using, that way you have no questions. But if you do have questions, you can always visit my website and just fire me off an email. So now to start, I masked off the areas, and that fits so perfect. I actually wanted love, live, and live, laugh, and hope. That's what I wanted. But again, I would have had to do one here, then one here, then, you know, to kind of line them up. For a video, don't have enough time, so I'm going to do it this way. This, again, hope, laugh, and joy. I mean, who doesn't want that in their life? So, I'm going to get the Fierro. Now, when you first open it up, it's going to be fine, but after you start using it, it does dry out a little bit. So, I like to mix it up before I use it. And I have found that sometimes, depending when it's running really low, it does dry out. I add a little bit of distilled water to it. Then mix it up. Then if I know I'm not going to use it for quite a while, I'll spray distilled water on top, then put the cap on. And distilled water I use because there's no impurities. It's free from impurities, I should say. Okay, so I'm going to take this and line it up. Now, do this very slowly. What you're going to do is you're going to put the Fierro right on top. And if you rush, your palette knife might get caught on the stencils. You might damage it. And then as you start working, it'll start settling in. What you want to do is you want to cover it to a point where you can't actually see the letters. And when I say you can't see the letters, see here, you can see the H-O-P-E. It's as it starts to settle, that's what you don't want. Okay, let's see if I can get a close-up here. Okay, you don't want to finish it like that. You want to totally make sure it's covered up. Oh, I have a dried fleck here. Make sure there's something hard in there. I think when I scraped the sides, I think I picked up a dried piece. Okay, make sure you cover it all up. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to smooth it out a bit. Depending, if you want it, some of the letters being rough a little bit, then you can kind of play with it like this. You could also sand this as well. Okay, I don't know where the letters are. That's the key. Okay, you're going to carefully lift this up. Look at that. I want the little heart. Now I am going to run the risk of touching something else, so I can very carefully do it like this. I can put it here. Where do I want it? Just see, there's an empty spot here. So what I'm going to do is, now see all this that's on here? Go on to another card and spread it around so that way you don't waste this. Okay, all I'm going to do is, I'm going to do it way over here so I don't, I'm just going to scrape it all off. If you do this fast, you can put it right back in the container. But if you leave it too long, it'll dry up and then you can't do that. But this is why if you reuse it, you end up doing it again. So now I'm going to pick up just a smidgen. And I'm going to put the heart here. Put that in. And lift it up. Oh, didn't work. Didn't work. I should let it dry. Okay, so what do I do with this? Just scrape it. And try it again. And lift it up. It's too small. The little heart's too small. Okay, so I am determined to get this to work. It's because I can't lay it flat. Now I think I've touched the star. There we go. I was determined to get that to work. And then what you're going to do now is you have to put this in water. Okay, so the stuff doesn't dry on it. Housekeeping, very important. All right, put the palette knife in water as well. And cover your container. And now, so we have this piece done. Now, just to show you how thick it is. That's how thick it is. It might be a little bit thick for an actual ATC, so I'm going to take my finger and I'm just going to press down just a bit with a wet finger. If it's dry, then you might actually pick up some of the Fierro with water, because the water will evaporate. Just pressing down just a little bit on the areas that are just a little thick. It'll just make it easier because I won't have to sand it. If you're doing this as an actual larger piece that's going to go, let's say, in a frame, then you don't need to worry about it. There. Now we have to let this dry. And when we come back, we're going to dry brush some dazzling metallic paint on it. Okay, so it's not 100% dry, but it's dry enough for me to handle. So I'm going to do some layers now of some colors, and I'm going to basically, I'm going to go dark to light. Now, I know this is kind of dark already, but what I have on my palette, there are, I've got the first three as Dazzling Metallics, Renaissance Brown, Old World Patina, and Splendid Gold. The differences between these, Renaissance Brown and Old World Patina are glazes, so the underlying color is going to show through, whereas the Splendid Gold is the regular Dazzling Metallics. Okay, so that's the difference between those. And then I have here transparent transparent yellow iron oxide and transparent red iron oxide, and these are the Decaware Traditions. This is the artist quality acrylic paint, and these are transparent as well, but they dry to a matte finish. I'm going to start with the Renaissance Brown, and I'm going to load a number 8 round, and I'm just going to really get that in there. I'm going to start at the bottom, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it dark and raise it towards light. And everything is just dry brushed. Now in here I do need to get in there a little bit, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of water, a bit more water than that, and I'm just going to kind of dab that in there. I want that quite dark. First, do it with a dry brush to see how it feels. Remember, this is a glaze, so it is going to show through. So I'm going to work the corner a little bit more over here. Now I'm going to rinse my brush, and I want to soften. I don't want any hard edges, so I'm just going to soften that. See how that's kind of disappearing? Turn that around, and I just want to soften that so there aren't any hard lines. Okay, that's with the Renaissance Brown. Now I'm going to go to, actually, you know what? I lied. I'm going to take some more Renaissance Brown and go towards the edges. If you've been following me for a while, you know that what I intend to start off with doesn't really even take shape, because as the piece starts to develop, it takes a life of its own, and I kind of go with that. Okay, so how's that? All right, let's get a little bit of brown, just a little bit in here, not much. Just kind of fade that out. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to go to the Old World Patina, and I'm not putting a lot of that in there. It's just basically just to kind of distress some of the spots. So I'm just going to put a little bit in here because it is very shiny. Just in there. Okay, not too much. I may add more later, I don't know. Now, the ones with the majority of the color is I'm going to take the Splendid Gold. I am going to add a little bit of water in that just to help it flow. And that's going to take up most of the area. And I'm not going over any of the letters, not yet. Start small, start with a light layer, and then you can always build it up. It's easy to add more. It's more difficult to take away. Once we put this on here, then I'm going to darken this out slightly by adding some of the acrylic paints. Up here is going to be very, very bright. And this one here, I will go over the letters. Especially this corner right here. And don't use your really, really expensive brushes for this technique, because the Fierro is a textured material, so it will wear down your brushes. I'm just going to kind of go over that. Okay. A little bit more of the Renaissance Brown in here. I kind of lost a little bit. I'm going to bring this up just a little bit more over the letters, come into here, blend. This is amazing for blending, like that. Bring a little bit of Renaissance Brown in here, right over the patina. There we go. Okay. You'll notice I didn't make a line straight like this or like this. It's on an angle. Okay, now what I'm going to do is take the transparent red iron oxide, which is now dried up a little bit. Let me just put a little bit of water in there. transparent red iron oxide and go into the Splendid Gold. And what I'm doing is I'm tinting the Splendid Gold to make it a bit more red. And I'm looking here, you know what? I probably could have used copper. Let me take a look. Grab a scrap piece of paper. So that's transparent red iron oxide with the Splendid Gold. Look at that. Look how close that is. This is a bit more red. So if you don't have transparent red iron oxide, you could always use bronze. That's actually pretty cool. Either way, they all work together, so it doesn't matter. Now, this one here, I'm going to go in between. And this you can do while it's wet. And because it's the colors mixed together, you're not going to get mud. Okay, see how I'm doing here? If you keep hearing that scraping and rubbing, that's my microphone hitting my sweatshirt. Drag over some of the letters. In between. Over some of these letters. Now we're going to just kind of scrub. Not scrub, it's just almost like a dry brush. Dry brush the rest in there. And we want it to look like it's just fluid. Okay, how's that? Oh, that's pretty. Now we're going to repeat the exact same thing, except we're going to use transparent yellow iron oxide. This one I know there is nothing else that I could use to really brighten this up other than adding, let's say, like a white pearl to paper accents. Whoopsie, that's gone off there. Let's see if we can brighten this up a bit. It just makes it a little bit more yellow. Now, while we're here, let's just take a little bit and just kind of hit like so. Okay. And really emphasize a few of the letters. Take pure Splendid Gold, quite thickly, put it right on top of the star and the lips. This is the big kissy kissy and the heart. Splendid Gold with the transparent yellow iron oxide. It just makes it more yellow. In the corner, quite thickly. And where there's heavy texture, you just put that in there. And I could also take some of this and just scrape it off the brush for the end and then just kind of move it. Just put a little bit on there. There we go. See, it looks like metal. And now what we need to do is we need to let this dry. What you can also do if you want, you can take some of the Renaissance brown and you can go back over just a few of the letters. Okay, if you want. Maybe just hit the corners. Like so. If you want it more distressed, personally myself, I like the gold, the Splendid Gold over just a few of the letters. I could take some transparent red iron oxide and just go over some of the middle areas. I mean, you can come in and you can even further intensify the reds. I love the reds in this. Oh my goodness. Just remember, if you're going to use pure paint, you need to go over with some type of metallic so it doesn't look flat. Like so. I'm going to distribute that around. Go back with a little bit more Renaissance brown right in here. And you're just kind of sculpting it. That is so beautiful. Take a little bit of that patina right next to the red. Green looks so pretty next to red. Mixed together it just makes a black, but next to the red it looks pretty. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this dry for about 15 minutes, and then when we come back, we'll see the whole thing completed. Alrighty, so there's the card. Now, what I want to do is I have all this leftover paint. Let's work on the back. And I started doing it. I thought, oh, you know, I better record this. So I'm just taking a flat brush, and I'm just putting Renaissance Brown on here. Then taking some of the patina and laying that in there. Then I'm going to pick up some gold. I'm not going to use any of the traditions on here, though. I want this to be very, very shimmery. And you notice I'm not laying this on the table because the texture, this is going to take about 24 hours to fully harden. So I don't want to handle it. But you notice I'm kind of, let's see if I can hold this so there's no shine. There we go. And just kind of glaze it. Keep it whimsical. Okay. If your piece is more old world, then you can, you know, don't make it so whimsical. Okay. With the Renaissance Brown. Okay. And then some more patina. I like the patina with the brown. It looks really pretty. And all I'm going to do is just, because this is going to be covered up, you know, if you put a label on the back, it's going to be covered up. This will just, you know, do something with the background. Okay. So that's actually pretty good. Now at the same time now, I'm just going to take the brush, I'm just going to tap, 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 tap the edge. Do this when the back is dry though. Okay. There we go. So that's, looks beautiful right there. You should be able to see that now. This doesn't take long to dry, so you can just put a heat gun onto it and then you can build it up a little bit more. Okay, if you really want to dust it, oh, let me just reach. If you want to soften those strokes, okay, take a clean, dry mop brush and just circle, circle, circle. With the light as you're just tickling the surface, back and forth, circles, and what it does is it softens it to something really, really, this is a way to do it. You can't put any pressure on this because it's not 100% cured. This is a way that you're not going to press too hard. And put that in water right away. And there we go. Look at that. Look how shiny that is. Now a lot of it's the video lights, so if I turn it, you can see the actual look. Okay, so there we are. So that takes care of that card. And then to dry it, I'm going to put it on its side like this. And I can just lean it up against, whoops, just lean it up against a bottle of paint. I would prefer though to turn it this way on an area that's away from the letters, like that. Okay, now one thing that I didn't cover, your bristle brush, and I keep forgetting to show this, especially when you use textured paint. So specifically for this lesson, the Texture Fierro, okay, if you apply it with a brush, because you can also use that to get some textures as well. Okay, you can use a brush. It may not be enough just to use soap and water to clean that because the particles get inside. Use a scrubby pad like this and it gets right inside, okay, your bristles. You shouldn't be using expensive brushes when you're using the Fierro anyways, but with the bristle brush, it is breaking down, but it makes the brush even better. So just use this under water. Don't use this dry, but under water. I put some water in my brush bucket. Okay, and then I'll dip my brush and I'll do that. I've got a little bit of water running and I'll just, you know, like this. And as the water's running on top, it's going into the bucket, and eventually then I can see that there's nothing coming out of the brush and it's 100% clean, and then I can clean it up. Okay? Well used. Alrighty, so that's about it. That takes care of this video for this card. I really hope that you enjoyed it. You give it a shot. Visit me on my website. You can go to gisellegrenier.com and click on the various links for my different forms of artwork, or go straight to my blog at creativechaos.artplace.ca. Check out a whole bunch of the videos that I have on there on preparing backgrounds, whether it's for ATCs, postcards, journal pages, regular artwork on canvas or whatever. I have a whole bunch of free videos on there. Check it out, get some ideas, and hope that you can create some nice dimensional artwork to share with others. Until next time, stay inspired.